Welcome, we're live? Are we live? Does this thing work?
Okay.
Welcome, everybody, to our Google Level 1 and Level 2 certification. My name is Matt Brandenberger. I am the District Technology Coordinator for the Snyder family.
And I'm Shannon Quigley. I'm the District Technology Coordinator for the North Side Schools. So we're here today just to kind of talk a little bit about our Google certifications that are offered through Google, not through us necessarily.
Should I turn my volume down?
Yeah.
How are we doing here?
Okay, we're starting off a little rough. We're going to recover here because we want to tell you today about what Google certification can offer for you. So this year we introduced the Google Tools for Education into our toolbox per se for you to use with your students and with your staffs or however you're using them. And one of the things that comes along with that is Google offers 4 different levels of certification for teachers to kind of hone their skills with how to use Google in the classroom.
Yep.
So today we're going to be talking about Google Level 1. So this is for educators who are looking to grow their expertise about the Google tools, not just in how to use them and navigate them, but really how to implement them into your classroom curriculum. So on my screen, Steve, are you showing mine? Okay. On my screen, you can kind of see this handout form that we've put together that Matt's going to drop the link in the comments of the chat if you want to follow along. We're not going to go through it all today. We just want to give you some point out some features of it so that when we send this to you to get started, you'll kind of be able to follow along. So this Google Level 1 certification guide just kind of tells you what it is. So Google Level 1 just kind of allows you to learn about Google certification at the most basic level. It's a series of activities that you'll complete through different modules, and then it ultimately ends in a 3-hour assessment to kind of practice your skills.
Mm-hmm.
After you complete Level 1, there's a Level 2 certification that just goes deeper into some of the other Google programs and also a little deeper into the tools that you've already used, just the next level up, and it again comes with another exam and a certification. The third level is after you've passed those 2 levels, there's a Google Certified Trainer. So if you feel comfortable sharing what you've learned about Google with other educators, that's what the trainer badge will do for you. And then the final limit is the Google Certified Innovator, and that's when you come up with sort of a project or a problem that you want to solve through Google tools. You apply to kind of be in this elite group of educators that come together to try to solve that problem at a summit over the summer. So that's kind of a really long-term goal of what Google certification is.
Right, and yeah, that's something that innovator level is probably only a handful of people in the entire state are at that level, and those are the people who are usually writing books or have quite a following on Twitter and they're sharing stuff out all the time. So, but our goal is really to see more and more people get that certification for Level 1 because it really does help you, like Shannon said, to be able to integrate what you're doing with technology into the classroom. So.
Right. So I've kind of moved ahead to this how to prepare slide. The assessment that you'll need to complete in order to become Google certified consists of 2 different parts. Some is multiple choice, but some is actual application. So this is something that to prepare for the exam, you'll kind of work through it on your own, and Google has some resources for you to help you do that. So in this link on the slide we'll send you has a Google for Education Training Center. When you click on that link in the slideshow, it's just going to take you to the Google website, and it has different units that you'll go through. So getting ready to use technology in the classroom. It has a series of built-in lessons with application examples and multiple choice quizzes to help you prepare. So this is really where I would say start working through these different modules, and then if you come to questions or problems that you can't figure out, that's where you could search Google for help answering those questions, or connect with one of us or connect with other colleagues that are doing it too to try to help solve some of those issues. So that's a great lost my thing here. So that's the first place to go to kind of get your training. We included some other different sites down here. If you were at Ignite this summer, you might have met Eric Kurtz. He also has a great resource for preparing.
It was very helpful when we did ours, absolutely.
It has a checklist of things that you can check off. Yes, I know how to do that. Yes, I feel comfortable. And then once you feel comfortable with all of those tools and you've kind of gone through all the quizzes, that's when you are ready to take your exam. Yep. So then you take the exam. It's given by a third party, so it's kind of you have to sit down in one setting and do it. You put in a code. You have somebody watching you on a camera to make sure that you're taking the exam. And then when you're done, you get an 80% to pass, and then it will send you a certification. So
One thing to say, and I know we have this on the presentation towards the tips at the end, but when Shannon talks about having a second computer, that's really key to have another computer, because you're, like Shannon said, you're on the screen and they're watching to make sure you're there the whole time and it's you taking the test and not somebody for you. But it's perfectly legal to have another computer next to you, or have another device that you can look things up on. It is a time test, so you know you can't spend forever looking at things, but it is nice to be able to have access to that. I know that when we took our certification test, we definitely utilized that other computer. Maybe not as much as we thought we would, but it was nice to have it there. That was a good tip.
Yep. So we just included some other of those tips in the end of this handout that you're going to get access to. And then just when you're ready to get started, we do have a form here that's really to help us know that you've started, so we can check in with you and say, hey, how's it going? Is there anything we can do to help you to get moving along? Some of the things people have asked us are just really, why would you want to do this? And some of the things that we just tell people is really it will, for me, it helps you become more student-centered in your classroom. It gives you ideas of how to integrate these tools that we've made available for you to help take your students to more of that deep learning experience, to think beyond how you would traditionally see these things. So how can I make Google Docs or Google Slides more interactive for my students and make it truly a more student-centered learning environment?
Yeah. Do you have that slide?
I don't think I have it pulled up right now.
Oh, you don't? I'm
yeah,
sorry.
because I closed my tab
Okay.
earlier.
But we can maybe send a link to that later as well. But there are lots of good reasons to do the certification exam. It is something that I would say really for anybody to at least look into, because you'll learn something as you're preparing for it. So even if you decide ultimately that it's not for you to take, those resources we gave you in the presentation there earlier are still a good thing to kind of go through, to just kind of learn. Even some of the tips and tricks that are hidden aren't real native to Google, but you'll find to be cool little time savers and things like that. So would encourage anybody to check that out. Looking to this side of your screen, you'll see the chat over there. We haven't had any questions pop up yet, but it looks like we've gotten a few more viewers, so anybody who's just tuning in, if you have a question that we haven't covered, again, we're just trying to make this only about 5 minutes longer, so that we can move on to our next stream, which we should just plug that real quick. You want to
Yeah,
tell
right
everybody
after
that?
this at 4 o'clock, we're going to be doing a presentation on Google Forms, which is one of our favorite Google tools. And if you haven't used it in your classroom yet, or in whatever role you're in, I think you would really love it. So this is a great tool to follow along with. So stay here, do something in between, and then come back and watch that at Google Forms at 4. If we don't have any questions coming into the chat right away, we do have a few that we kind of thought through that people might be wondering about. So we'll kind of go through those together. So I'll ask Matt one and then he can answer it. So
Okay.
Is it difficult? How much time do I have to put into doing this to become Google certified?
Well, again, start with those training resources that you showed us. I think that's a great place. Google provides those resources, so there's sample questions that you'll see on the exam. And if you feel comfortable with those, I would say that it's not that difficult. I'm kind of OCD when it comes to test taking, and so I used the full 3 hours. And I would say I felt confident at the end that I had done fine, but I felt a little bit of that pressure as you're taking the test, like, oh my goodness. You know, we don't do standardized testing as adults as much anymore, especially at my age. So I would say that it was difficult, but definitely worth it, and not to the point where it was like, I think anybody who put the time into it would do fine on it.
Yeah, and so the prep time, you can see on that training, it does say that it takes like between 10 and 13 hours to get through those modules. And depending on how comfortable you are with Google, it may be more, it may be a little less.
Absolutely.
But if you can do those skills, I think you will be fine on the exam. It does, like Matt said, feel a little pressure because there's a clock and somebody's watching you. But overall, I felt comfortable moving through those, even if I wasn't sure I knew how I could find the answer.
Yep. Another question, is there a cost associated with it?
So there is a cost to the certification. So it's $10 for your Google Level 1 and $25 for your Google Certification Level 2. But the good news is we do have a partner from Google for Education who's willing to provide some codes to cover those costs for us. So if you get to the point where you're about a week away from taking your test, if you email Matt or I or any of the coordinators, we'll be able to help hopefully get you those codes. So as long as we have codes available, we're able to share those if we use them all up. It's not an unlimited number of codes, but hopefully we can help these first round of people get going.
Yeah, but like Shannon said, we don't want to just hand those out now. We want people who have put in the time and have looked into it. And that kind of brings up another point about scheduling the test. It's not something you just get online one day and say, I'm just going to take it now. You actually
Right.
have to sign up for it, schedule a time to do it, and then set aside like a 3-hour window to do that. But really, you can do it about any time. I don't think it's specified like during working hours or anything.
Yeah. So is this if I'm just getting started with Google, is this the place I should start?
Yeah, that can be a tricky question. I think it depends on your level of expertise just with technology in general. I would never discourage anybody, like I said earlier, from at least looking at some of those training modules to see, is this something that I could do? Because I think you'll find that as you kind of work through those, you learn as you go, and then you'll definitely be prepared. But if you're maybe watching this and you hear level 1 and you thought this is like a basic, 101 for people who don't know anything about technology or anything about Google, then we probably would want to point you to some different resources. Again, we can put those, I don't know if we have those to put in the chat.
We've got them. They're linked in our slides.
In our slides, okay. And that's to what's really, if you did TechMIS with us, where we talked about doing like bite-sized PL, it gives you like an activity once a week for, is it 8 weeks?
Yep.
And they automatically email you, just kind of like a little activity to do that kind of builds your Google knowledge. It'd really be good for anybody to do, but maybe you start out with that before you jump into actually becoming certified.
Okay, I think that's most of our questions.
Okay.
Any tips? That's the last one. Any tips you give? I'd say don't be afraid to try it. I think you won't regret trying this process or going through it. I think one of the things that Matt and I were talking earlier that he said was something that makes the Google certification stand out from some of the other certifications that we have is that as we went through the Google certification, it really is rooted in the pedagogy of teaching.
Yep.
So everything comes back to how you can use it in the classroom. So this is something that is directly related to your professional learning as a teacher, expanding your skills. In fact, when you turn in your Google certification that you've become that, we can provide you PGPs to kind of provide you with a recognition of that learning towards license renewal.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And yeah, don't forget, please let us know. We don't want to hand out those codes until you are ready to take the certification exam, but right now I just got a fresh batch of those in my email today. So I hopefully can hand those out to a bunch of you that are interested in doing this. So
it's kind of, so as you're thinking about it, feel free to like grab a friend and say, hey, do you want to do this with me? Because it's nice to have somebody to talk through the modules that you're going through. So if you can't find a friend, maybe email us and we can either find you a friend or we can be your friend as you go through them. But we just are really excited about it, and hopefully you can find value in doing this and helping kind of push that technology use in your own role.
absolutely. All right. Well, I think we'll sign off unless there is a last question. I don't see any questions coming across the chat right now. So remember, join us at 4 o'clock. That's in about 15 minutes. We are going to sign off here, but then we'll be coming back on to share with you Google Forms and have some really cool things that even if you think you already know it all about Forms, I think maybe you'll find a couple things that you'll enjoy for that. So
Yeah, sounds good. All right, thank you for tuning in.
thanks. See
See
ya.
you later.